The family home was supposed to be built on trust, a fortress of unity and loyalty. But as Christine stepped into that cold, unforgiving courtroom, it became clear that trust was the first casualty. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, as if every wall, every bench, every flickering camera light absorbed the weight of decades of secrecy and betrayal. Christine's voice trembled, fragile yet cutting, as she accused Robin of siphoning over $2 million from the family's joint accounts. Money that had vanished into secret properties, luxury purchases, and hidden investments. And with each revelation, it wasn't just money that had disappeared. It was marriage. It was loyalty. It was the very fabric of the Brown family, torn and unraveling before the eyes of the world. Cameras blinked like unblinking witnesses. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Reporters, former friends, neighbors, even people who had once shared meals and laughter with the Browns now gathered, eager for the spectacle of destruction. At the center table, Christine sat serene in posture but molten in expression, fingers interlocked, eyes burning with a mix of sorrow and fire. Across from her, Robin fidgeted, dabbing at tears that threatened to betray her calm, while Kody remained rigid, jaw clenched, refusing to meet anyone's gaze. Today was not just another trial. It was the day Christine would take her family to court, and even those closest to the Browns could not fathom the depth of deceit about to be laid bare. The judge entered, his presence commanding, immediately silencing the murmurs. "This court is now in session," he declared, words that fell like hammers across the tense air. Financial dishonesty, fraud, concealment of marital assets. Each phrase cut like a scalpel through pretense, exposing the raw nerves of betrayal Christine had carried silently for years. She breathed steadily, not for vengeance, but for truth. For too long, she had been dismissed as bitter, as the wife who left a plural marriage for reasons no one understood. But now, the world would see the reality. Her departure was not fueled by emotion. It was forced by necessity, by the cold arithmetic of theft hidden behind smiles and social appearances. Amelia Trent, Christine's attorney, rose with deliberate calm, moving to address the jury. "What you are about to hear," she began, voice measured yet slicing through the tension, "is not a story of a failed marriage. It is a story of calculated deception. My client trusted her husband and his fourth wife with her heart, her home, and her finances. And in return, that trust was betrayed. Over 4 years, more than $2 million vanished, diverted into hidden accounts, luxury vacations, and properties Christine never knew existed. Lies followed every question, gaslighting every doubt. But the numbers, ladies and gentlemen, do not lie. As the prosecution laid out evidence, bank statements, wire transfers, receipts, the courtroom seemed to vibrate with disbelief. Every meticulously crafted excuse Robin had offered began to crumble. Each luxury purchased in secrecy was a scar on the Brown family legacy, a mark of betrayal that stretched far beyond money. The jury leaned forward. The whispers grew louder. And as Christine's gaze locked on Robin, years of suppressed anger and heartbreak finally found a voice. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, about exposing deception, about reclaiming what had been stolen not just from her, but from the truth itself. Mary swallowed, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the edges of the witness stand. Her eyes darted nervously, refusing to meet Christine's, as though the weight of her own actions could crush her if she dared to look. I didn't want anyone to know," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was helping. I thought it was for the family. I never imagined it would hurt Christine like this." A ripple of tension ran through the courtroom. Reporters leaned forward, scribbling furiously. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his carefully maintained stoicism beginning to crack. Robin covered her mouth with a hand, mascara running, eyes wide in panic. Amelia Trent took a measured step closer, her voice firm yet calm. "Mary, the court needs the truth. Did you inform Kody that Christine might leave? And did that lead to financial decisions being made without her knowledge?" Mary nodded, her throat tight. "Yes, I told him. I thought I was protecting everyone. I didn't think she'd ever know. I didn't want to betray her, but I did. I betrayed her trust. And she choked, tears forming. "I helped them take what should have been hers." Gasps echoed across the gallery. Christine's hands clenched into fists in her lap, her entire body trembling. The sister she had once leaned on, confided in, and trusted had been complicit in the very scheme that had stolen from her. Amelia pressed on, her voice slicing through the stunned silence. Mary, did you benefit personally from any of these actions? Mary's eyes lowered to the floor, voice breaking. Yes, there were incentives. Financial incentives. I was offered a share in a new business venture if I followed through. I didn't realize the scale of what I was participating in until it was too late. The courtroom erupted, half in whispers, half in audible shock. Kody's jaw tightened. Robin's hands shook uncontrollably. Christine's face remained frozen, the slow, heavy realization washing over her. The betrayal wasn't only marital. It was familial, strategic, planned. Amelia leaned forward, her eyes locking briefly on Mary's. So you admit, you knowingly misled Christine, helped divert her family's assets, and concealed critical information, all for personal gain and at Kody's direction? Mary swallowed hard, her voice barely audible. Yes, I did. Silence fell. Even the judge leaned back, rubbing his temple as though trying to process the enormity of the confession. This was no longer a story about hidden accounts or financial mismanagement. This was a story of a family fractured by deception, loyalty twisted into betrayal, and the devastating truth of a woman's trust shattered from every side. Christine's eyes filled with tears, but she did not move. She did not speak. For once, silence spoke louder than words. Robin covered her face, sobbing openly. Kody remained stiff, unmoving, but the cold veneer of control was gone. For the first time, the world could see the Brown Empire, polished, curated, and televised for decades, exposed for the fragile, corruptible house of cards it truly was. Amelia stepped back. The courtroom buzzed, the murmurs growing louder, whispers of shock and outrage rippling through the crowd. The stage was set for the final reckoning. Christine had seen the full scope of betrayal, Kody's greed, Robin's complicity, Mary's treachery. But what came next, in the following days of testimony, would push the Brown family even closer to complete collapse. Outside, journalists captured every moment. Social media erupted. Fans debated, cried, and gawked as the once untouchable family was laid bare in all its scandalous complexity. The question lingering in everyone's mind, justice or devastation? And for Christine, the question was far more personal. Could she reclaim what was hers? Or was her family gone forever? Ever? The courtroom was silent, every eye fixed on Mary as she rose from her seat and approached the witness stand. Each step seemed hesitant, almost reluctant, like she was walking toward her own reckoning. The polished floor reflected her shaking legs, the weight of what she was about to confess pressing down on her shoulders. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edges of the stand, knuckles white, lips quivering. She avoided Christine's gaze, as if confronting her sister directly would make the truth unbearable. Do you know why you're here today? Amelia's voice cut through the tension, steady, controlled, yet deadly in its precision. Mary nodded barely, her voice shaking. Yes. Did you ever at any time notify Kody Brown that Christine was contemplating leaving the marriage? Amelia pressed, eyes narrowing. Mary paused, swallowing hard. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Finally, in a whisper, she admitted, "Yes, I did." Christine's chest tightened, and a pang of heartbreak tore through her. Every trust she had placed in Mary, every word, every shared confidence, now felt like a knife twisting in her back. Why? Amelia asked, soft but relentless, forcing the truth from the depths of Mary's conscience. Mary's lips trembled. Her eyes, once defiant, now glistened with unshed tears. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if she left. I thought it would ruin everything. Kody, he promised me that if I cooperated, he'd look out for me. I told myself it was for the family, but I knew deep down I was being selfish. The courtroom gasped. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like waves crashing against a cliff. Christine's tears spilled silently, tracing hot trails down her cheeks. Mary finally met her gaze, shame and regret etched on every line of her face. I didn't mean for it to get this far, she whispered. I didn't know he would do all of this. I thought it was just paperwork. Amelia leaned closer, her voice almost gentle now, though still carrying an edge of steel. Do you regret what you did? Mary's composure broke entirely. She dissolved into a shaking, quiet mass of remorse. The courtroom fell silent as if the very walls were listening. Even Robin, sitting across the aisle, looked away, unable to watch. And Christine, despite the agony tearing through her chest, felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Power. The truth, grotesque as it was, had been laid bare. Finally, it was in the record. As the gavel fell to adjourn the day, Christine remained seated, staring at the empty witness stand. Samuel's revelations, Mary's confession, Kody's lies, they played over and over in her mind. Everything she had believed about her family, everything she thought she knew, was shattered. And yet, in the midst of her grief, a single realization struck her. The truth was freedom. She didn't just want justice for the stolen funds anymore. She wanted the world to see the depths of their betrayal. The fifth day of the trial dawned with a fervor that could be felt blocks away. Crowds spilled into the streets. Camera operators scrambled to get live feeds. Reporters speculated wildly about the mysterious final piece of evidence. Rumors buzzed. Would it be financial? Personal? Criminal? For the first time since the trial began, the word indictment whispered through courthouse halls, twisting Kody's stomach into knots. Christine arrived quietly through a side entrance, avoiding the chaos. She wore a simple navy suit, no jewelry, her makeup minimal. Her eyes, though shadowed by exhaustion, burned with determination. Today was no longer about money. Today was about exposing the full extent of the lies, the theft, the premeditated betrayal. Across the aisle, Robin looked like a ghost, her once imposing bravado stripped away. Tears streaked her face as she whispered urgently to her attorney. Kody, in contrast, sat rigidly, his suit immaculate, shoulders squared, eyes darting nervously across the courtroom, scanning the empty witness stand as though a monster might leap from it. The judge entered, bringing the courtroom to uneasy order. Amelia Trent rose, calm but commanding. "Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Detective Elena Vasquez to the stand." The crowd inhaled collectively. A detective. Until now, the case had been civil, betrayal, hidden accounts, financial deception, but a detective signaled something far more serious, far more sinister. Kody's jaw clenched. Robin's hands shook uncontrollably. Detective Vasquez was sworn in, placing a thick binder on the stand. Amelia's voice cut through the tension. "Detective, can you state your line of work for the record?" "I'm a financial crimes investigator with the Arizona State Bureau of Investigation," she replied steadily. "I have 15 years of experience investigating fraud, embezzlement, and asset concealment." "And are you presently investigating any cases connected to Kody and Robin Brown?" Amelia asked. "Yes," Vasquez said simply. "I initiated an investigation into potential criminal activity connected to the accounts and business entities controlled by Kody and Robin Brown." The courtroom went utterly silent. Even the rhythmic clatter of reporters' keyboards ceased. Christine's breath caught. What had seemed like betrayal was now revealing a far darker truth. "Detective," Amelia continued, "please detail your findings for the court." Vasquez opened her binder. "Over a 3-month period, we tracked more than 30 wire transfers totaling over $4 million from shared family accounts to overseas banks in Belize, the Cayman Islands, and Luxembourg. The transfers were routed through shell companies controlled solely by Kody and Robin Brown. These companies had no legitimate business operations. They were created for the sole purpose of concealing funds." Gasps spread like wildfire. Kody shifted, uncomfortable. Robin's attorney rose to object, but the judge overruled firmly. Vasquez turned a page. "Additionally, we found evidence of falsified tax reporting, forged signatures, and at least 3 instances where Christine Brown's electronic authorization was duplicated to facilitate bulk transfers. In short, we have evidence of deliberate financial crimes, wire fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement." Christine's breath caught in her throat. Forged signatures. Offshore accounts. Her life's work, her marriage, and her trust had been weaponized against her. Amelia stepped closer. "Detective, in your expert opinion, does this indicate intentional deceit?" "Yes," Vasquez said. "The complex layering of transfers, the use of shell companies, and the omission of Christine's name indicate a coordinated effort to hide funds." "Who orchestrated this?" Amelia asked, unwavering. Kody and Robin sat frozen, faces pale. Vasquez's gaze met theirs without hesitation. Kody Brown and Robin Brown. The courtroom erupted. Shouts, gasps, flashes from cameras, reporters scrambling to capture every second. Christine's hands trembled, tears welling, but her eyes remained locked on the man who had betrayed her so profoundly. Amelia motioned for Vasquez to continue. "Further, we recovered internal emails between Kody, Robin, and a third party, Richard Wallace, a money fixer under investigation for laundering funds for high-profile clients." These emails discussed structuring transactions to avoid IRS detection and liquidating Christine's interest before she even knew what was happening. Christine's heart pounded, selling out her share, her life, before she could even react. This was more than deception. It was premeditated obliteration. The defense attempted to object, citing lack of authenticity. Amelia produced forensic verification linking the emails directly to Kody and Robin's devices. The objection fell flat. Vasquez concluded, based on this evidence, the Arizona Bureau of Investigation has recommended criminal charges: wire fraud, tax evasion, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. The courtroom gasped again. Even the judge was visibly taken aback. Kody's empire, built on manipulation and deceit, was crumbling before everyone's eyes. Robin clutched his arm, pale and trembling. Amelia turned to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, this was never about mere mismanagement. This was deliberate, premeditated betrayal, a conspiracy to rob a woman of her agency, her dignity, and her future. Then Amelia dropped the final bombshell. Your Honor, tomorrow the prosecution will call a whistleblower from Everwood Collective. Kody's eyes widened. Robin's hand shook violently. The gavel fell, but the courtroom remained charged with anticipation. As Christine left the room, her tears streaming, she knew this wasn't the end. Tomorrow, the whistleblower would reveal the final explosive piece of the puzzle, one that would shatter the Brown family to its very foundation and could cost someone not just wealth, but liberty itself. Wealth, but liberty itself. The courtroom had taken on the atmosphere of a battlefield, silent but charged with anticipation, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mary rose from her seat, each movement deliberate, her body taut with the strain of knowing what she was about to confess. Her footsteps were hesitant, almost like she was dragging herself toward a reckoning she could not escape. The polished floor reflected her shaking legs, each step echoing in the cavernous space like a tolling bell. The weight of her admission pressed heavily on her shoulders, her knuckles whitening as she gripped the edges of the witness stand. Her lips trembled, quivering as if even speaking would fracture her into pieces. She avoided Christine's gaze completely, as though looking at her sister directly would make the truth unbearable, would make the betrayal too raw to confront. The tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to choke on, and every person present, jury, lawyers, press, and family alike, felt it pressing down on them. Amelia Trent's voice cut through the stillness, calm but razor-sharp in its precision. Do you know why you're here today? Mary nodded, her head barely moving. Her voice was thin, quivering, almost swallowed by the oppressive quiet. Yes, she admitted. Amelia pressed, eyes narrowing with unrelenting focus. Did you ever at any time notify Kody Brown that Christine was contemplating leaving the marriage? Mary swallowed hard. The courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath. Every pair of eyes followed her, hungry for the confession that hung between them like a suspended guillotine. Finally, in a voice so low it was almost drowned by the tension itself, she whispered, Yes, I did. Christine's chest constricted painfully. A sharp pang of heartbreak tore through her, twisting in her chest like a blade. Every ounce of trust she had ever placed in Mary, every shared secret and whispered confidence, now felt like a knife twisting deeper into her back. The betrayal cut more sharply than any financial deception, more painfully than the orchestrated lies and hidden accounts. It was intimacy weaponized against her. Amelia's tone softened slightly, but there was no mercy in it. Why? Mary's lips quivered. Her eyes, once defiant and composed, shimmered with unshed tears, revealing the torment that had plagued her for years. Because I was afraid of what would happen if she left. I thought it would ruin everything. Kody, he promised me that if I cooperated, he'd look out for me. I told myself I was doing it for the family. But deep down, I knew I was being selfish. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I didn't know he would do all of this. I thought it was just paperwork. The courtroom collectively gasped, whispers spreading like wildfire through the spectators. Christine's tears spilled silently, scorching lines down her cheeks, her chest tightening with a mixture of grief and righteous fury. Mary finally lifted her gaze, meeting Christine's eyes for the first time, shame and remorse etched across her features. The woman who had once been a sister, a confidant, now appeared as a portrait of guilt and despair. The silence was absolute, oppressive, as if the room itself was absorbing the weight of the confession. Robin, seated across the aisle, turned away, unable to witness the unraveling of their carefully constructed facade. Kody remained rigid, his face betraying none of the internal storm raging within, yet his fingers clenched involuntarily under the table. And Christine, despite the agony constricting her chest, felt an unfamiliar sensation, a flicker of power. The grotesque truth had finally been revealed, laid bare in the record, undeniable and undeniable in its implications. As the gavel fell to adjourn the day, Christine remained seated long after everyone else had moved, her eyes fixed on the empty witness stand. Samuel Green's revelations, Mary's confession, Kody's calculated lies, they replayed over and over in her mind, a relentless tide of betrayal. Everything she had believed about her family, every fragment of trust she had built over decades lay in ruins. And yet, amid the wreckage, she felt something stirring deep inside her. Clarity, freedom, and an unwavering resolve. The next morning, the fifth day of the trial dawned with a fervor that radiated through the streets of the city. Crowds swarmed the courthouse, spilling into adjacent avenues. Camera operators scrambled to secure vantage points. Reporters shouted over one another, speculating wildly about the mysterious final piece of evidence that had been promised the night before. Rumors buzzed in the air like electricity. Would it be financial? Criminal? Personal? For the first time since the trial began, the word indictment lingered in whispers throughout the courthouse halls, and Kody's stomach knotted in anticipation and dread. Christine arrived quietly, slipping through a side entrance to avoid the chaos. She was dressed in a simple navy suit, no jewelry, minimal makeup, the bare essentials that allowed her to face the cameras without distraction. Her eyes, shadowed by exhaustion and sleepless nights, burned with a fierce determination. Today was no longer about recovering stolen funds. Today was about exposing the full scope of lies, deception, and betrayal. About holding to account those who had orchestrated a premeditated assault on her life, her dignity, and her future. Across the aisle, Robin appeared ghost-like, her once commanding demeanor completely stripped away. Tears streaked her face as she whispered urgently to her lawyer. Kody, in contrast, sat rigidly, shoulders squared, jaw tight, eyes darting continuously across the room, lingering on the empty witness stand as though some monstrous truth would leap out at him. The judge entered with his customary gravitas, bringing the room to uneasy order. Amelia Trent rose slowly, exuding a calm authority that commanded immediate attention. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Detective Elena Vasquez to the stand. A collective gasp rose from the courtroom. A detective. Up until now, the case had been civil in nature, hidden accounts, financial betrayal, mismanagement. But the presence of a detective signaled something far darker, far more serious. Kody's jaw clenched visibly. Robin's hands shook uncontrollably, betraying her composure. Detective Vasquez was sworn in, placing a thick binder on the stand, the weight of it symbolic of the revelations about to come. Amelia's voice rang clear, cutting through the tense air. Detective, can you state your line of work for the record? I'm a financial crimes investigator with the Arizona State Bureau of Investigation, Vasquez replied, calm and precise. I have 15 years of experience investigating fraud, embezzlement, and asset concealment cases. Amelia's gaze was steady. Are you currently investigating any cases connected to Kody and Robin Brown? Yes, Vasquez said simply. I initiated an investigation into potential criminal activity involving the accounts and business entities controlled by Kody and Robin Brown. The courtroom went utterly silent. Even the rhythmic tapping of reporters' keyboards ceased. What had seemed like betrayal was now revealing a much darker truth, one that reached beyond personal grievances into criminal territory. Amelia leaned closer. Detective, please detail your findings for the court. Vasquez opened her binder carefully, flipping through pages with deliberate precision. Over a 3-month period, we tracked more than 30 wire transfers totaling over 2 hours, $4 million from shared family accounts to overseas banks in Belize, the Cayman Islands, and Luxembourg. These transfers were routed through shell companies controlled solely by Kody and Robin Brown. None of these companies had legitimate business operations. They were created for the express purpose of concealing funds. Gasps echoed across the courtroom. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat, while Robin's attorney immediately rose to object. Objection, Your Honor. This is beyond the scope of a civil proceeding. Overruled, the judge said firmly. The witness may proceed. Vasquez continued, her tone steady, unwavering. We also discovered falsified tax reporting, forged signatures, and at least 3 instances where Christine Brown's electronic authorization was duplicated to facilitate bulk transfers. In short, these were deliberate acts of financial deception, embezzlement, and identity theft. Christine's breath caught. Every forged signature, every offshore account was more than a betrayal. It was a calculated assault on her life, her marriage, and her trust. Amelia stepped closer, voice low but incisive. "Detective, in your professional opinion, does this indicate intentional deceit?" "Yes," Vasquez confirmed. The layering of transfers, the use of shell companies, and the omission of Christine's name demonstrate a coordinated effort to hide funds from her. Amelia's gaze swept the courtroom. Who orchestrated this scheme? Vasquez's eyes locked on Kody and Robin without hesitation. Kody Brown and Robin Brown. Pandemonium erupted. Shouts, gasps, camera flashes, reporters scrambling to document every second. Christine's hands trembled, tears pooling in her eyes, but she remained locked on the two people who had betrayed her most profoundly. Vasquez went on. Internal emails were recovered between Kody, Robin, and a third-party associate, Richard Wallace, a known money fixer under investigation for laundering funds for high-profile clients. The emails detail structuring transactions to avoid IRS detection and liquidating Christine's interest before she even knew what was happening. Christine's heart pounded, selling out her share, her life, before she even had a chance to react. It was premeditated obliteration. The defense attempted to object, claiming the email's authenticity W. Christine read the words and felt her stomach drop. "If she fights back," the note warned, "we make her seem crazy. Leak stories. Use the kids. Turn the public against her." It was the final nail in the coffin. By the time the appeal concluded, the courtroom's mood had shifted. No longer was Kody perceived as a confused husband. He was revealed for what he truly was, a controlling, calculating manipulator. The judge promised a decision within 30 days. As Christine stepped into the December chill, cameras flashed, microphones thrust toward her. Do you fear the conviction will be reversed? Do you still feel threatened by Kody? Would you testify again? "I'm not intimidated by Kody Brown," she said, staring directly into the lens. "I once was, but not anymore." The clip went viral within hours. Then, 2 weeks later, the nightmare returned. Amelia's voice shook over the phone. "Christine, there's been a leak. Private documents, online. They're framing you again." Christine froze. Months of healing, of reclaiming her life, were unraveling overnight. Fringe sites, YouTube channels, and social media exploded with claims that Christine had masterminded the fraud. Forged emails, doctored bank records, anonymous whistleblowers, all painting her as the villain. Sponsors fled, her nonprofit collapsed, and even friends distanced themselves. Amelia called an emergency meeting. "We fight. Not just in court, but in the court of public opinion. If you stay silent, they dictate the story. If you speak, we reclaim it." Weeks later, Kody's lawyers filed a motion to vacate his conviction, claiming Christine was complicit. She slammed the motion onto Amelia's desk. "They're charging me now?" "They're playing dirty," Amelia said. "We fight." The appellate hearing was a war of witnesses, forgeries, and deceit. Kody's camp called Samuel Green, a former ally, to claim new evidence. But Amelia had a trump card, a federal investigator's emails showing Kody attempting to bribe Samuel. The courtroom went silent. Danforth's case crumbled. 2 weeks later, the appellate court denied the motion. Conviction upheld. Justice had held, but the damage lingered. Her reputation, her nonprofit, her trust, shattered. Yet in front of the cameras, Christine declared, "Kody Brown can try to rewrite the story, but the truth will prevail." But the nightmare wasn't over. Federal prosecutors widened the investigation, this time targeting the entire Brown family. Robin, Mary, even Janelle, everyone with a hand in the money was under scrutiny. Homes and offices were raided, boxes of documents seized. Christine herself faced subpoenas. The indictments came like a bomb. Kody, 8 federal charges. Robin, 6. Mary and Janelle, 3 each. Everwood Collective labeled a criminal organization. Public opinion exploded. Even Kody's diehard followers turned. Yet Kody remained defiant, promising to fight to his last breath. Christine watched, exhausted but resolute. She wasn't finished. Then came the RICO trial, the federal case under RICO, targeting the Browns as a criminal enterprise. The courthouse was electric, filled with journalists, former investors, and past fans. The family, once seen as wholesome, now stood fractured and exposed. U.S. Attorney Linda Mallister opened with a statement that shook the room. For years, the defendants hid behind family values and religious harmony. But behind the veil, they ran a criminal organization, defrauding investors, laundering money, and targeting anyone who stood in their way. The defense repeated their old narrative. The Browns are not criminals. But this time, the stakes were higher, the truth sharper, and the fight far from over. Christine looked in the mirror, older than she felt, battle-weary but defiant. If Kody wanted a war, he would get one. And this war, the RICO trial, would expose every secret, every betrayal, and the darkest depths of the Brown family yet. The Brown family yet. They were portrayed as victims of government overreach, media scrutiny, and a vengeful ex-wife wielding the law like a weapon. But Christine Brown didn't flinch. She had heard it all before, and this time it wouldn't work. The trial opened with a barrage of evidence. Forensic accountants, federal agents, leading the jury through a labyrinth of shell companies, offshore accounts, sham charities, and phony real estate deals. The money trail crisscrossed banks, countries, and names, all pointing straight back to Kody and Robin. They revealed forged tax forms signed by Mary, shredded records by Janelle, and how the family had profited from it all. By the end of the first week, the evidence was damning. Yet the most explosive testimony had yet to arrive. Christine Brown was about to take the stand. The courtroom fell silent as her name was called. Every step toward the witness stand felt heavier than the last. She took the oath, sat, and faced the people who had once been her family. "Miss Brown," the prosecutor began, "can you tell us about your relationship with the defendants?" Christine inhaled deeply. "I was married to Kody Brown for more than 25 years. We had 6 children. I lived alongside Robin, Mary, and Janelle. We built a life, or so I thought. But then I started noticing things. Money disappearing, accounts I never knew existed, decisions made without me. When I questioned it, I was gaslighted, called paranoid, crazy, ungrateful. But I wasn't wrong. They were stealing, not just money, but my trust, my dignity, my future." She took a trembling breath as the prosecutor handed her a stack of documents. "Do you recognize these?" "Yes," Christine replied, fingers quivering. "Accounts I never knew I had. Transfers totaling over $2. $4 million money I earned, money I was entitled to, moved without my consent." "Did Kody and Robin approve these transfers?" "No, they deliberately kept me in the dark." "And did you confront Kody about this?" "Yes. In 2021, I spoke to him directly. I told him I knew the money was missing. He laughed and said, 'Christine, you'd never get it.' Even if I told you, this is business, none of your concern." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Kody's jaw clenched. Christine's eyes blazed as she continued, "I didn't agree. I didn't sign anything. The signatures were forged. I'm here because I won't let him get away with this anymore. I won't stay silent." The prosecution then played a series of covert recordings, Kody and Robin scheming with their accountants. In one, Kody said, "Christine thinks she'll get half. She'll be lucky with 10%. After this, she'll have nothing." Another tape revealed Robin instructing an accountant to hide transfers and erase Christine's name from all records. The jury recoiled. Sealed emails later exposed Kody hiring a private investigator to spy on Christine, gathering dirt to use against her. Deliberate intimidation, not just fraud. On the 10th day, Kody took the stand, attempting a last-ditch defense. "Did you ever plan to defraud your wife?" he was asked. "No," he said, voice shaky. "I loved Christine. I did everything for the family. I never intended to hurt anyone." But cross-examination cut through the act like a blade. "Did you form 27 shell companies? Did you transfer money offshore? Did you plan for Christine to have nothing?" Kody squirmed. Silence filled the room. Words failed him where evidence did not. The prosecution had one final witness, Christine's eldest son, Isaac. Christine's heart pounded as she realized the boy she had protected from Kody's lies was about to enter the courtroom fire. Isaac took the stand. "My relationship with my father? Complicated," he said. "It was good, until I saw him for who he truly is." He revealed how Kody manipulated him into signing documents tied to shell companies, stripping him of over $150,000. "My dad didn't just steal from my mom," Isaac said. "He manipulated all of us. Loyalty was silence. Questioning him was betrayal. But it wasn't loyalty, it was control. And then the final blow. He never loved my mom," Isaac whispered. "He saw her as useful, smart, assertive, but he planned to break her spirit." Christine wept quietly, feeling decades of betrayal crystallize in those words. Even the defense could not recover. Just when it seemed the story couldn't get darker, the prosecution called Angela Reed, Kody's mistress and co-conspirator. She took the stand, calm but firm. "I was involved with Kody for 5 years," she admitted, sending shockwaves through the courtroom. "And I helped him with his finances, opening accounts, signing real estate documents, even acting as an executive in one shell corporation." She described Kody's plan to move $8 to $10 million overseas, keeping Christine out of sight and out of reach, and his schemes to control everyone around him. The courtroom erupted. The full scope of deception, manipulation, and betrayal had finally been laid bare. Christine sat back, tears in her eyes yet unbroken. She had survived Kody Brown's lies, his schemes, his control, and now she had survived the truth. But the war wasn't over. As the doors closed behind Angela, everyone understood this was only the beginning of the final reckoning. Beginning of the final reckoning. Angela continued, not just hiding